Hello, this is Cheesy and it's time for another screencast. This is the fifth in a series of screencasts in which I show you some of the techniques I use to keep my acceptance tests clean and easy to maintain. In our last episode, we looked at the navigational capabilities built into the PageObject gem. In this case, in this line that I have highlighted, you see I can navigate to checkout page. That actually is leveraging some routes that I defined, and it knows how to navigate through numerous pages to get to the page that I ask it to go to. In this episode, we're going to look at something very different. A developer named William Powell contributed some code to the PageObject gem that allows you to build a wrapper around JavaScript widgets and then register them with PageObject so that PageObject can treat them just like any other control that it knows about already or any other element. And today we're going to explore that a little bit, and we're going to write wrappers or take two of the jQuery UI interface elements or controls and create widgets for them and register them with the PageObject gem. The two that we're going to look at this time is the dialog and the tabs. And let's start by just taking a quick look at them. The dialog, as you can see, it starts with a top level div that wraps the whole control, and then inside of that div it looks like there's another div which is the title bar. If you look inside of that, there is a span, which is the actual title itself, and there is an anchor, which is the X in the corner that you can use to close the dialog. There also is a span inside of that, which is close, which I would bet that maybe is like a little tooltip or something that might display it. Don't know for sure, but we can explore that if we want to. We'll see. Below that is another div that contains the contents of the actual control, and it has a paragraph inside of it again. So if we were to use the PageObject gem or Water or Selenium for that matter to access and to try to interact with this, we would have to treat each one of those elements individually. And so what we are going to do is show you how we could treat them as a new widget and just call methods to interact with it. So let's get started with that. I'm going to flip over to RubyMine, and I'm going to start by creating a new directory under lib, and we'll just call that widgets. And inside of there, we're going to create a new Ruby class, and let's call this jQuery Dialog. Okay. Now, there are two things we need to do right away for this, and the first is that we need to make sure that our class extends or inherits from one of the PageObject elements. And the reason for this is because there's some core functionality that exists there that we need in order to be able to register it back with it. So since this class, or since my control has a top level div that wraps the whole thing, I'm going to use that. So again, what I've done here is I've said that my jQuery dialog inherits from PageObject elements div. And there you have that. The second thing we need to do before we can use it is we actually need to register this control with PageObject. So I like to do that right in the class. And this method takes three parameters. The first is how we want to refer to this inside of the PageObject gem whenever we find these and declare these at the top of the page. I'm going to call this one jQuery Dialog. What type of class should be returned is the next one. And last but not least, whenever we actually look for this using the locators that you'll provide, what type of element should it look for? And as we have discovered, it is a div. Okay, so there is all of that. Now what we are free to do is to just start defining the methods that we want to use to interact with this. The first thing that I want to do is I want to have a method that will return the title. The next thing is I want to have a method that will return the content. We'll fill these methods in here in just a second. And the final thing that I might want to do is I might want to have the ability to close this dialog. So those are the three methods. Let's go ahead and write the code for these. For the title, we saw that there is a div that controls the title bar, and then there is a span inside of it that actually has that. So let's go ahead and declare that. The class for the div is UI Dialog title bar, and inside of that we want to grab the span element, and then we want the text from that span element. And so that is how I would get the title for that. The next is I want to be able to close the, get the content of the dialog. So again, it was inside of a div. And the class for that was UI Dialog Content. And I'm just going to get the text directly from that. And the last thing that I want to be able to do is I want to close the dialog again. And there is a link inside of here, although that link has a class, so I should be able to get directly to it. And I just want to click it. Okay, so there is my jQuery dialog control. Those are the three things that I might want to be able to do. If there were other things, I would write them. If I wanted to refactor this, if I found some duplication, I would do that as well. I'm basically building out a class to represent that thing on a screen. So I'm going to now turn my attention over and create a new class. And let's call it jQuery tabs. Okay. And let's go take a look at that on the page here and see what we can discover about the tabs. And the first thing, I'm going to go ahead and hone in on what I want to look at. And I see it looks like there is a div that wraps the entire thing. I'm really not quite interested in that. I'm more interested in the actual tabs across the top, and it looks like that is an unordered list. So let's go ahead and do some of the heavy lifting we need to do here. Since that top level one is an unordered list, that is what I'm going to extend. And again, I'm going to register it. jQuery tabs. And there it is. Now, the only method that I want to select, or that I want to do with the tabs right now, is I just want to select a tab. And I want to be able to pass the label in and have it select the tab based on the label that is displayed on the tab. So let's go take a look at the control itself. Like I said earlier, we've got an unordered list. It looks like there is a list item in there. In fact, it looks like the list item represents each tab. And it actually looks like there is an anchor inside of that list item. What I can do though is I can easily just find that anchor, which was a link in our case. So let's say link element. So it's going to now look inside of that unordered list. It's going to find a link that has that label. It's going to click it. So there you have it. There's our two classes. Pretty straightforward to use those. I'm going to go ahead and hide this, and we're going to turn our attention now to seeing how we can actually use these in our tests. Let's start by creating a new feature, and let's call this jQuery demo feature. So we're going to go back and we're going to write a scenario or two using our dialog. And first thing I want to do is I'm going to grab just a little bit of this. Okay, there's my first scenario. I'm going to go ahead and write a second one that demonstrates actually using the close button feature that we added to it. Okay, simple enough. And now we're going to turn our attention to the tabs control. And let's see here. Grab a little bit of the text here. Perfect. I think those are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly go through and generate the steps. And I'm going to actually put them in a new step definition file. Okay. Yeah, I found a little typo there. I'll just go ahead and correct that before I generate it. And there you have it. I now have all of my step definitions generated here. The next thing that I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of page objects for this. And let's call the first one Dialog Demo Page. And I'm going to give it the page URL. I believe that's it. Let me just go quickly verify that. It sure is. Okay, now there's a couple of things I want to show you. The first is that the outer div has a class UI dialog. We will go ahead and look for that. Here is something that's really neat. I'll go back and show you. When we registered this, we said we want to call it jQuery dialog. So in my page here, whenever I want to declare it, I simply do that. And I'm just going to call it the dialog for right now. How do you want to find it? Well, we just saw that the class has a class of UI dialog. Excellent. So that will find that control, except as I was looking around in here just a few moments ago before I actually started to do this screencast, I realized that this control is actually inside of an iframe. Now, all of you know that if you use, or if things are inside of an iframe or a frame, and you're using water or selenium, you actually have to physically tell it to change to that frame before you can begin finding things that are inside of it. Then when you're done, you need to tell it to change out of the frame back to the top level context. So in PageObject, we do something just a little bit different. We allow you to declare that something is in a frame, and you do that by using the InFrame method call. Now this particular frame has a class of demo frame. And so you basically pass it a block, and all of the controls that are inside of that frame, you simply just declare them inside of that block, but you do have to do one additional thing. You have to pass the frame as an additional parameter just so that it knows which frame to look for it in. And there you have it. That is how we would declare that. So now it will automatically go into that frame whenever we try to access this control, and when we're done, it will automatically move us back out of it. There is one final thing I want to do to this page. I want to add a new method that, nope, not modal dialog. Oop, I got too quickly on the autocomplete. And I want to add this method that will just return the element for me. So I'm going to access the dialog element. Okay, and there you have it. That's all I need to do. So I can go back to my steps now and start to fill in for this page. And here is, I want to validate the title. Okay. Okay. Looks good. And that one looks good. Here's closing the dialog. Okay. And the last one here. And let's go see if these two scenarios actually work. Hopefully I didn't type something wrong. I've done a lot of typing here. Let's see. I just really love doing these live because you never know what you might see, what might actually happen. Wow, how lucky was that? That one worked. Let's try to run the second one and see if it's going to do the close properly. And there you have it. Both of those scenarios work. We still need to work on the second one, or the tabs. And again, I'm going to start by creating a new page object for that. And let's call it tabs demo page. And let's go take a look. When we declared our tabs, we said we wanted to call it jQuery tabs. So we know what to use in here. And I believe that's the right URL. Let's go take a look at the jQuery tabs. And several things to note here. The top unordered list that we want to look for has a class of UI tabs nav. And you will also note that this is inside of an iframe as well. So we have got to go back and add our endframe. And there you have it. And just like I did on the previous page, I'm going to add a method that just gives me direct access to the element. Okay, so there you have it. And with that in place, I'm going to go back now and fill in the last steps. And let's hope this one works as well. Visit the page. Okay. And let's try to run this last one, and hopefully everything will be fine. And there you have it. This is an incredible way to easily access controls, custom controls that normally would be fairly complicated. It normally would be quite a chore to create all the individual elements and ways to interact with them. Here, as you can see, we've kind of consolidated them into one place. It's something that you want to use for sure if you have an application that is using some of these large JavaScript libraries with a lot of JavaScript controls, jQuery, GWT, GXT, and so on and so on. And I really hope you enjoyed this screencast.